I come bearing good news today. The Supreme Court ruled today in a 6-3, ruled 6-3 in a landmark decision that gay and transgender employees are protected by civil rights laws against employer discrimination. The decision was one of the most highly anticipated of a Supreme Court term, stacked with high-profile cases. It was delivered in the middle of the LGBT Pride Month. A set of cases that came before the court had asked the justices to decide whether Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which forbids discrimination on the basis of sex, applies to gay and transgender people. Justice Neil Gorsuch, who wrote the opinion for the 6-member majority, said that it does. He says, today we must decide whether an employer can fire someone simply for being homosexual or transgender. The answer is clear. An employer who fires an individual for being homosexual or transgender fires that person for traits or actions it would not have questioned in members of a different sex. Sex plays a necessary and undistinguishable role in the decision, exactly what Title VII forbids. The other justices that joined Gorsuch were Justice John Roberts, Stephen Breyer, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Elena Kagan, and Sonia Sotomayor. Alito, Kavanaugh, and Thomas dissented from the decision. Former Vice President Joe Biden, the presumptive Democratic nominee for president, called the decision a momentous step forward for our country. And the Trump administration had weighed in on the cases, arguing on behalf of a group of employers who had been brought to court for firing their gay or transgender employees. And the Department of Justice had argued that the Civil Rights Act did not cover gay or transgender employees. Last week, the administration similarly finalized a Department of Health and Human Services rule that excludes gay and transgender people from discrimination protections under the Affordable Care Act. So this is a breath of fresh air after that had happened last week. And the dissenting justices criticized the majority for projecting what they see as a new meaning on a decades-old law. Alito argued that it's unlikely that lawmakers in 1964 would have sought to protect gay or transgender people from discrimination, which I think is kind of a silly argument considering what we're looking at with the Second Amendment, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Like if we're actually if we're going to make that argument like, oh, well, that's not what, they meant, then I think that we should probably take a second look at the Second Amendment too. I'm not saying anything. Yeah. So what do you guys say about this?
No, I think that I disagree. I think the Founding Fathers are really clear that assault rifles should be given to, no, wait, they meant muskets. Never mind, you're right. You're completely right on this. So I thought this was really interesting because I didn't expect it to turn out this way because, everyone's been telling me left and right that Trump completely controls the Supreme Court and no details besides that matter, and that we have to do everything we can to put him in power, to get him out of power so that Biden can save the Supreme Court. It seems like this was a reasonable ruling, that they're like, yeah, sex is basically the gender affiliation. This seems like a reasonable outcome to a case. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe things are going so weird in the U.S. that I'm like, this seems okay. But it just goes to show that the Supreme Court's still a little bit more mixed up than we thought it was. What we do know is that both Democrats and Republicans put in people that are economically right. Really what people are arguing when they talk about Biden versus Trump, and I think this kind of shows it in a weird way, is that we're talking about social issues.
Yeah.
So is this good that it happened? Yeah, it's really good. Am I surprised?
Great news.
Yeah, I am surprised. But does it also show the Supreme Court's a little more free, especially with Gorsuch writing the majority? Yeah.
Yeah. Here's how I have to look at this. There's a lot of people afraid of how this election is going to turn out. And there is a possibility that Biden can win this, and then the Supreme Court would potentially be in the hands of the Democrats, and they'll be able to decide whether they take the initiative and make sure they actually put their Supreme Court nominees in without kowtowing to the Republicans has yet to be seen. Because remember, Obama did such a fantastic job. We would not be in this position were not for there to be actually real reform for the Supreme Court. Actually, if it was more democratically elected rather than you have a president appointing somebody into that one of branches of power that's supposed to keep the other two branches in check, just like Congress keeps the Supreme Court and the executive branch and vice versa and all that other good stuff. So this is an opportunity. And of course, Trump, being who he is, he doesn't help his own case. And many of the Supreme Court's justices, I assume, besides Kavanaugh, have a brain. and are well aware of just how angry the populace is towards Trump.
But he drinks beer, kid.
He loves
Please
beer.
please don't mix beer with Kavanaugh, all right? I like chocolate beer, all right, but I'm not going to use that as a defense if I did something horrible, okay? So there.
You know, I get the sense Clarence Thomas doesn't like chocolate beer. I mean, here's the truth. I feel bad for Clarence Thomas because ever since Scalia died, he really doesn't know what to do. He usually just sits there, doesn't say anything, and just goes, yeah, what Scalia said, I'll do that.
Yeah.
And now he's gone. I just feel bad for the guy.
Yeah, he misses his pal, his friend. So the sad fact is this, is that, okay, this ruling happened, and this is fantastic, okay? So the LGBTQ communities, their rights are still protected for the time being. But this is Donald Trump we're talking about. And, of course, if he could do something provocative, he will. But should Biden win the election, and again, anything can happen between now and November. Anything can, and the debates have yet to be seen. Should Biden win, okay, the Supreme Court is in his hands, in his administration's hands. So then this goes out to the diehard vote blue no matter who people. All right, he's in. What is he going to do to really make sure the Supreme Court acknowledges and protects not only the rights of the LGBTQ community, but also for other rights for other Americans too? And what else will happen? Because if the Democrats don't take the initiative to, make the Supreme Court theirs and protect progressive or somewhat open-minded policies, we're going to be right back in the same situation in the next 4 years under a potential maybe Republican administration after Biden is gone. So this is a time to celebrate, but now it's not to celebrate too hard because, a blow of the wind can change anything at this point.
Yeah.
And I think I want to quote Mona in the chat, because it's basically the exact thoughts I was going to say anyway. Yeah, either way, we got to get a Republican.
Yeah, that's correct. Can't argue with that. That's a solid.
I mean, that's
fact.
sort of the outcome I've been saying. It's
Now,
like
correction,
again,
not a Republican, a neoliberal.
yeah,
that's it.
It's there's no difference. I mean, it's like again, the Republicans are going to pick a socially conservative, fiscally conservative judge, and the Democrats are going to pick a socially moderate, fiscally conservative judge. And again, we've said on the show, and I think it's a very fair point to bring up, economics is the most defining of all the factors. And you can be whatever you want. You can be LGBT. You can be any race. If you don't have money, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Can I highlight something? Just the thing that really
Go ahead.
got me here is this part here where it's like if every single American had been surveyed in 1964, that's a dumb point. That's just empirically a dumb point. It's like, okay, if 200 years ago we had maybe considered black people as people, then would things be different? Yeah, things would be totally different. If we had considered every person a person for as long as the United States has been formed, then we wouldn't be in this situation now anyways, right? But it's clear here that it's like all that we have are justices who are like, oh, well, my concept of social issues has not changed since 1964, and so I don't think that we should change based off. That's dumb.
That's dumb. Not only that, to Gunner's point, because a final note for the story is this. The big reform that's needed, I'm going to say reform, reform again. Because
Take the atoms, break them apart, and put them into something new.
Right. So
I'm reforming.
For the Supreme Court, reforming the Supreme Court, make it democratically elected, and then make it more than just 9 people.
I would actually like the Supreme Court to be picked of 100 random Americans.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a better system.